welcome to this video that I've been super anxious to film for some reason. I really don't know why. Well, I kind of know why, because I feel like people are going to bully me, because whenever I talk about books, it's all my opinion, and I'm also like anxious that I'm going to be like, I love this book, and then someone's going to read it, and they're going to be like, what's wrong with you? Which has happened. And that was... I'm going to try and give as much context to the canon books, but remember, if you read a book because I'm like, oh my god, I love it, do not blame me if you hate it, okay? I'll be very offended if you hate it. Don't hate it. No, I'm kidding. But, am I? No, I'm kidding. Okay, but within that same line of speaking, don't leave nasty comments. These are all opinions, except for one book. It is fact. But all that I'm saying is an opinion, okay? But I do hope you guys enjoy this video. If it goes well, then I'll probably do this every season, depending on how much I read every season in my reading journal. That's my reading journal. I'm going to be referring to it a lot this video because I didn't really plan it out. I really script this video out because I thought we'd just have a chill time together talking about books. I don't do my tracking by month. I do it by season because I don't really read that much, but maybe be changing this year. I've been reading a lot, so we're going to talk about all those books that I read this winter season. So it's just January and February, and then March, April, May will be spring, and maybe I'll do a video at the end of May for that, or in June, because we're currently in March and I'm doing winter. So, yes. Just now when I was looking at this, I realized I've actually read 17 books, 2 in March so far, but this only has 16 books, so I've messed up somewhere here, and I'm going to have to figure it out later. But anyways, I read 15 books, 14 of them were audiobooks. Some of those sprinkled in there, I read along in the page while I listened to the audiobook as well. So some of those are a little bit mixed and I don't really know how to track them quite yet. I definitely know how to track them, but I just haven't done it. I heavily depend on audiobooks, and I know a lot of you guys can relate. I listen to my audiobooks through the New York Public Library. You can go on Overdrive and put in your library card, and then your library has a catalog of ebooks and audiobooks that you can borrow, just like you would at a library, so sometimes you have to wait for books. Lame. This is digital, but I get it. I understand. One was a physical book, but I started it last year in October, so I had 2 rereads, 7 favorites, and 1 absolutely horrid book. The one that I'm going to talk facts on, no opinion there. And all of them are fantasy. Oh yeah, I only read fantasy ever. But I have been branching out into more romance and more... I never read things that have real world aspects to it. It has to be a completely fantasy world. But I've really actually been enjoying some of the fantasy books that have real world elements. So... not progress, because don't plan on reading contemporary anytime soon, or just regular fiction. Not gonna happen. I live in this world. Why do I want to read about this world? Wait, what was that TikTok that I saw? Oh my gosh, you know what I hate? Co-star. Everything that they put for Aquarius is so untrue. It seeks attention by quoting philosophers only they have heard of. No, I hate philosophy. Unnecessarily offended by phone calls that could have been texts. No, I'd rather you call me. And then we can talk about other things rather than just the one thing that would have been brought up in a text. I hate co-star.
I get asked sometimes why I like the fantasy genre so much. The short answer is because it's fun. Long answer is because people in fantasy stories experience the same trauma that we experience in real life. But they have magic and dragons and stuff. If you were choosing between regular trauma or trauma with magic and fun, is that really a choice for you, Tim? Think about that for a while. I get asked.
Yeah, so that's why I read only fantasy. Anyway, so let's talk about the books that I read. First off, we started with Blacksun, which was a great way to start the year, because this book by Rebecca Roanhorse is a mixture of pre-Columbian cultures. So this book was just very relatable to me because there's a lot of Mayan stuff in it and other cultures in that area. It's also a fantasy book, so it's a little bit of a melding thing, which can be a bad thing, but I'm still trying to decide how I feel about that. Making that into a monolith. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. I really like how it was written out. There were some good diversity points to this, not only with the cultures, but also just diverse characters. Who do we follow? This book has multiple points of views, a very interesting world system, very interesting world itself because of the influences. But yeah, just seeing myself represented in a book, which, I resigned myself for a very long time, most of my life, that I would never see myself on screen. And not that I was sad about it, because I know a lot of cultures are more representation of me. I'm like unlikely to ever exist in media, but this blew my mind because I was like, is this how you guys feel all the time? Like, there are just things that are familiar to me within a published piece of work. Fantasy, which I love fantasy, it's just great. There's stuff like Balam, which is jaguar, Whipil. Those are literally the only 2 things I can think of. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this, and I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. There's one thing that I do want to mention, though, about this author, Rebecca Roanhorse. She wrote a book previously called Trail of Lightning, and it's about Native Americans. And in that book, she committed some faux pas. Don't really remember what faux pas means, but hopefully I'm using that correctly. She shared some sacred stories from the Daina tribe. I really tried to figure out how to say that, but I just feel like the internet's lying to me. So please let me know. She shared these protected stories that are protected because of colonization, because white people would come in and take their stories and scram and then contort it and make it terrible, because that's what colonizers do. So yeah, she shared those and didn't consult the tribe, and so I would say don't read that book, but I enjoy this book very much, and I am looking forward to the next book. It comes out this year, but I hate the cover of the next book. I just really don't like it. Oh, this season I did these little thingies. Let's see what I wrote about blacksun. Oh wait, I gave it a 4.5 stars, not 5. Yeah, just wild. My favorite genre, fantasy. Very solid high fantasy. I will say that a lot. I like things that are like solid, like this is good. This isn't like, oh my god, it's gonna be my favorite book ever. But I like to call things very solid. And the audiobook performance was very good. It had a full cast. Full cast? I don't know. It had like, for the different characters, they had different voice actors. Voice actors, narrators. The next book that I read was The Hunger Games. It was a reread. I felt due for another reread. That was the only reread that I did. I feel like I do a lot of rereads, but this was the only one this season. Wow, oh no, that's a lie. There's 2 rereads. I just really like that book. It really brings me back to a certain place. I feel like nothing is like it. Nothing compares. It's a reread, so I didn't rate the reread. Just some rereads feel like, I just feel like I can't rate them because I really like know it. I don't know. Some of them I can rate because I did rate the other one. I don't know. I wasn't planning on reread, but I saw it on my Kindle because I was like, I want to read from ebooks again. I like got super hyped about ebooks, and so I listened to it on audiobook. But it was the vibe. It was the mood. This reread, as the last reread that I did of this, take a shot every time I say reread. Again, just reminding me why I am never going to be Team PETA. It's not that I don't like PETA, and it's not that PETA doesn't deserve the world. It's that I do not think that PETA and Katniss should be a thing. So I am therefore not Team PETA, okay? Like, how can you reread The Hunger Games and still be Team PETA when this girl is literally trying to remind herself to like PETA? She's like, oh my god, right, let me do this because Capital's watching and I need some sponsors. Like, these feelings towards him do not occur naturally. And I don't blame PETA for liking Katniss or anything, okay? It's just, no. Alright, anyways, it's just solid. It's solid, it still holds up 10 years later, you know? 10 years later. Like, that's crazy. This is 2012 that I read it when the movie was coming out. I read the book. Crazy. Next up, we have Vespertine, which I read physically because I bought it in October when it came out. I think it came out in October. I really like Margaret Rogerson's books. Most of them are standalones. I think that this one's actually a series. I don't really know. This book was so good. It was such a slow book. It only took me so long to read because I'm very slow physical book reader. I just can't, okay? Yeah, it says Vespertine #1. So will there be a #2? This is a YA fantasy. All of Margaret Rogerson's books are. I really enjoy them. At some points I felt like it got a little bit slow. I'm like, come on, let's go. Let's move it. But it was still very enjoyable. It's not that I don't like slow books. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it was just it was very good time. Very solid book. This was not a dumb bitch main character, which I love. Okay? Like, she did the things that made sense. She wasn't just doing things because we needed some conflict in the plot, you know? That's what I hate. I feel like people do that all the time. Like, find a better way to create conflict rather than making your character look stupid when you're telling me that they're such a strong, independent woman and they're doing stupid things. Like, Don't just tell me, show me. But anyways, so she was great. But this book, before I forget, I would definitely say look up some trigger warnings beforehand, because there are some things that you should look out for beforehand. It's nothing too intense, it's young adult, but I think it deals with mental health very well. And this is the perfect example of like taking a real world problem and applying it into a fantasy world and being like, yes, that hits. No romance, which is, you know, I love my romance, but I really enjoyed that there was not a romance in this book, so that was refreshing. Okay. Who would have thought I would say that? But that's just because the rest of the book was so good, okay? A+ magic system, too. I really liked that, and the, like, religion in the world. Very interesting book. I really enjoyed it. If there's a second book, that'd be great. But I could see this being a standalone. I could live the rest of my life with this just being a standalone. Next up, let's talk about Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Oh my god. We're gonna get a lot into this one. So, I really enjoyed this book. I know a lot of people didn't like this book, which my friend and I, Jenna, we read this kind of at the same time. Did we read this one together? Yes. I'm already forgetting. I had no desire to read this book because I thought that it took place in the real world. Like, was it urban fantasy? And I was like, no, I hate real world stuff. Even if it has fantasy in it, I'm like, I have to be in a certain mood for it. I don't hate them. Like, I like to read them, but just in a certain mood I need to be. But then my friend Jenna said, do you know anything about this book? And I was like, nope. Let me look it up. And then we started reading it. So, audiobook, of course. And I had such a good time reading this book. I mostly read adult fantasy, so things with very complex worlds that are very slow, very tedious, a lot of details. I like books that are slower, just because I like to just live in that world. Like, it's so comfortable just to be there. It probably did help that I listened to this on audiobook, but there were no times in the audiobook that I was like, I feel like stop listening and I'm gonna go do something else. I was just constantly listening to it, and it was a great time. I have heard people be like, it's so cringy. Girly pop. You read contemporary, and the things that I've seen that have come out of those books in the real world that y'all love, how do you think this is cringy compared to that? Just saying. I don't mean to get super defensive about this, but just, okay. Also really appreciated this because it felt like a more mature book within the writing and the world building than Court of Thorns and Roses did. So that was also a plus for me for this book. Again, because I read a lot of adult fantasy, so it was nice to see like the growth, the development within her writing. And the woman herself, I got a little bit attacked in my last video about some things, and people attacking my character when you could just tell me about certain things. And so to that, I would say I'm not going to live with the conviction that this is a fact about this person when it is not a fact, and I'm not going to spread that idea around. That I'm not going to believe something about a person that may or may not be true. I'm not going to say it with conviction that this person is this word. I could never do that. As somebody so kindly brought up in my comment, with my background, those are just things that are like I will never be able to do. Like if you understand anything about me, that is something within the system that I was raised. Like, I just can't do that because that has been done to my people for hundreds of years, just claiming something about somebody that may or may not be true. So obviously I do hope that she makes a statement on that. So anxiety this has given me. Yeah, anyways, it takes a lot for me to be like, I actually liked this book, because I used to really hate this author. I really did. I lived for many years being like, why? And then I actually finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I was like, okay, maybe I get it a little bit. My camera stopped recording, and I talked through a whole book, and it wasn't recording. This book was a waste of time. I do not recommend reading this book. I gave it 2 stars. I would even give it, that's the wrong paper. I would even give it less than that. I would give it 1.5 stars. It was really bad. I like to read bad books that I think will be bad because I think they'll still be a fun time. Or like I'll think a book is bad and still be like, it was fun though. Like I had a good time. But no, this was not a bad fun time. Again, read the freaking paper. At the end of it, I was like, what was that? Why? No. I don't generally like to read novellas because I usually think they're going to turn out how I think they are, and this one definitely did. It was just complete fan service, complete pandering to what people want. Not good. If you're reading that series, Court of Thorns and Roses, do not read A Court of A Court of Frost and Starlight if you're going to read Silver Flames. Court of Silver Flames. What are these titles, ma'am? We have a problem here. I would like to discuss. I'm glad that I didn't read Frost and Starlight when I was reading between the third book and the fourth book, because that's when this novella takes place. It is a little loosely mentioned in A Court of Silver Flames, but like you literally don't even need to read it to understand. Yeah, it was really stupid, and I wrote down that it was weirdly woke. Like she was writing things in it to be like, wow, look at what great people these are, which I was like, this feels very awkward. This feels very weird. I'm very uncomfortable by the atmosphere you have created here, lady. So yeah, this was not it. This book, don't read it. You can live your life without it. And it's not even a bad fun time to be like, let me see how bad this is. It's going to be a fun time. No, it's not going to be a fun time. House of Eclipses by Casey L. Bond. I gave this a 2 stars. It's a romance fantasy. It's basically about this world that's like divided into 2, like the day thing and the night. Like the day side of the world is just like sun all the time, scorching hot deserts, and the moon side is like whatever, and they're enemies, and so they're bringing together one of the sun daughter girlies and one of the, is he a king, the one on the moon side. Yeah, not good. Let's see what I wrote about it. Oh, I saw this review on Goodreads, and then I actually read it, and I was like, you warned me, but I didn't know how bad it would be. How many times this author wrote brows kissed. Brows kissed. Like, no. Stop it. Stop it right now. Insta-love was horrid. I don't mind insta-love, okay? Do I? Maybe I do mind it. But, I think, give me an author that can do it good. I don't know. Let me know, though. But this insta-love was not it. I wrote, I can never read one of those again, insta-love stories. Maybe it cannot be done. I don't know. Prove me wrong. I really liked the world and the, like, political system, but that was, that was the best part about the book. And I think that's what gave it its 2 stars, but, like, that doesn't make up a whole book. It needs to have something else. The character relationships all throughout anybody were the worst. Not good. Also, there was, like, this weird two love triangles. No. Mm-mm. It was not good. Almost horrid, I would even say. So, moving on. You don't have to read that book. If you want to be, like, teased by a good world and, like, a fun political makeup religion thing, then maybe read that, but then you're going to be sad because it lives within a book that's not great. Moving on to The Bone Shard Daughter, which is a book that I really loved. It was 5 stars for me. This is by... I even have it. It's by Andrea Stewart. This book I bought back in last spring, and I never read it because the only thing I'd ever heard about it was that it's got lesbians in it. I don't know why. That was the only thing I ever heard about it. And now that I've read it, I feel mad that people reduced it down to that, because I think those things, while some people like read for that and like seek out books specifically for that, it's like so much more. Like, it has an East Asian inspired world. I would hazard a guess at Japanese, because the world is like a lot of islands in an archipelago, if I know what that even means. This was like a solid fantasy book. It's multiple point of views, and the audiobook was also very good. Different narrators for each character, I think maybe 2 characters got the same narrator, but like I said, I really like the world, but I feel like it was not like overly in your face, like, wow, look at this East Asian world that we're living in. Like, no, it was just like part of the world. It's very normalized, and I very much appreciate it about that, because, fantasy worlds that are in like what is medieval Europe, they don't really go into that like description of the culture, and I think that books that are not in the Eastern medieval times tend to go more like into that, so that they can explain everything, and like they get very wrapped up in that, and I felt like this was just very normalized, and it felt like a lot more of like a flawless read in that way. So I very much appreciated this book. I also liked the bone shard magic stuff. That was very interesting and something that I have not seen in a fantasy book before. So that was very fun. I also really liked the main character. There's multiple main characters. What's her name? Literally Bone Shard Daughter character. And I like the twist. Did not see that coming. So yeah, very good. I would recommend. I'm waiting for the audiobook of the second book to come in from the library, but I also have it physical so I can read along. So it is so hot. My ears are literally burning. Okay, time to get even more heated though, because next we have Crave by Tracy Wolff. Tracy Wolff, I have some words for you. What the fuck was this? I literally wrote on my thing, I hate this woman and everyone who had something to do with this book. Not a single original thought was written in this book. Nope. Also kind of racist. I'll talk about that. She really thought she was doing the most, but it was honestly, the whole thing was pretty offensive. Offensive AF. How many times this woman put AF in this book? I'm like, I felt offended for young adults because it's a young adult fantasy. The cover is supposed to look like Twilight so that you think it's Twilight. And I know this is out of the like author's control. This is like publishing stuff. So I won't fault her for that, maybe. I don't know. Let me know if she had this idea and then I'll get on her for that. But it's always advertised as Twilight meets Harry Potter. No, it isn't. It is not Twilight. Maybe it steals some things from Twilight so that you can be like, oh my god, Twilight. No. It even mentions Twilight in the book as well, which is very embarrassing. Embarrassing to read. Oh my god. Literally what's on at the top of my Instagram, because I want to read to you some of the things that were like so woke that it was honestly kind of really offensive. I posted on my Instagram story when I had to read that while I listened to audio. Normally I don't read books. I don't hate read books. Like, I'll read books because I think they're a bad fun time, which I thought this was going to be a bad fun time. I don't generally read books, like hate read books, because I do not like when people do that. I'm like, then this book is just not for you. But this book was just actually bad. It's not just not for me. It's not for anybody. Should not be for anybody. These are the things that I was like, how did this get published? How? Wow, this is so small. I need to zoom in. I'm an old person now, apparently, because I like cannot get with the young adult books anymore. I'm pretty sure that's an insult to barracudas everywhere, chimes in another one of Jackson's friends, his Spanish accent sexily rolling his R's. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. That's an insult to barracudas everywhere. That's how I imagine this woman thinks Hispanic Latin people talk. Okay, it gets worse though. This time, Macy's not the one making the choking sound. No, okay, this is young adult. I look up, tracing it to its origin. The only member of the order, which is this guy's group of friends, who looks like he might be Native Alaskan. This takes place in Alaska, by the way, which is just offensive in itself. A guy with bronze skin and long dark hair tied into a neat ponytail at the nape of his neck. She just racially profiled this man. Lady, what was that? What was that? Explain yourself. No, I don't even want to hear explanation. That you wrote that down. Somebody read that and was like, published. By the way, this book is about this girl who goes to this boarding school in Alaska because her family died, and so she's going to stay with her uncle, and then she gets there and everybody's like really sketchy, and it turns out that it's a magical school and there's vampires and crap and I don't know, other people, witches and stuff and werewolves. So yeah, anyways, I'm in the class as one of the other members of the order. He's black with friendly eyes and the hottest set of locks I've ever seen. That is embarrassing. Why would you write that? Amber eyes that seem to burn from within, warm brown skin, black afro that looks amazing on him. Okay, she's in a library. It's a very spooky ooky vibes. There's no lights on or something. There's nobody around, you know, it's the nighttime. So she hears some music playing, right? I try to place it, but as I get closer, I realize it's not so much music as it is chanting in a language I don't recognize and certainly can't understand. Instantly, my curiosity turns to excitement. When I was researching Alaska, I learned that there are 20 different languages spoken here by the state's native peoples, and I can't help but wonder if that's what I'm hearing. Bestie heard some chanting and was like, I bet you it's the natives. Time to get jiggy with the natives, guys. What? I hope so. I hope it's the Native Americans so I can go and goggle at them because they're so different and unique. I'm an indigenous person, if you didn't catch that. I hope so. I've totally been wanting a chance to listen to one of the native languages spoken, especially since so many of them are threatened, including a couple that have less than 4,000 speakers in the entire world. That these native languages are dying out is one of maybe the saddest things I've ever heard. Bestie did a Google and was like, I'm gonna write this in the book. Also, this is taking place in a gothic, Victorian, medieval, European vibes castle in Alaska. They're in some tunnels under this castle, okay? There are more bones above each of the tunnels, as well as plaques bearing inscriptions in a language I don't recognize. One of the Alaskan languages, I'm sure, but I want to know which ones. Sees some writing in a language she doesn't know. It's the natives. Tell me if this is racist. Tell me it's not just me, because I know it's not just me. Other FOBA, like I mentioned earlier, the AF, too much. Why did you think young adults speak like this? I feel offended for young adults. FML, TTYS, OMG. She wrote OMG a lot. And not even like as what like a character is saying. She wrote that in like the other parts of the book. Truly a horrid book. I only read it all the way through because it was on audiobook, and I was borrowing it from the library, so I didn't pay for it. Okay, great. When these offensive things were happening, I was like, I just need to know what else she put in this book. I just also needed to know how much worse it would get. So yeah, 1 star, if even. I would not even give it 1 star. There was nothing redeeming about this book. I was just really hoping it'd be a bad fun time, that I'd be like, oh, these are the vibes, but it was not the vibes at all. At all. Okay, time to change the battery. I'll be back. We're already recording. Look at my baby hair bangs. Do you like them? Some things while I've been gone. Didn't realize that I did not have my second battery charged, so I had to wait for that, and I got really hot, so I put on a t-shirt, and then I made myself some hot chocolate. Don't ask. The lip color is ColourPop. LAX. Is that the name? We're gonna ignore the fact that this is like a knockoff NCT 127 t-shirt. So next up, we have the second book in the Crescent City. Oh wait, did I say that the last book was called Crescent City? Because it wasn't. It was called House of Earth and Blood. But you saw it. You saw it with your own eyes. It says Crescent City on it. And then the title is House of Blood. No. But this one rectified the situation, and it's bigger. But my friend and I, again, Jenna, did a buddy read for that last book. And then the second book, we both read it because we both really loved the first book. So we were very hyped about the second book, which was just very exciting to be hyped about a book with a friend. This was like my first complete buddy read with somebody, which was very fun. Most of the time we were just like racing each other, being like, I'm ahead of you. Nope, I'm ahead of you. I finished. I'm like, oh my god. But this one, we were a little bit better at not racing each other through it because we wanted to enjoy it, but we also like really wanted to know what's going to happen. This one, I really enjoyed. We would say, so like our thoughts are basically the same. And this is something that Jenna said, that this book feels like on par with the first book. Yeah, I was a bit afraid for the second book, in which direction it would take it in, but I really enjoyed it. And again, we were just like, this feels way more adult, way more like developed. Yes, it is slower, but I think that's just what I'm used to from adult books. What else do I want to say about it? Let me ask Jenna. I got concerned that I was interrupting a nap.
No, I'm just enjoying despair.
That, if anything can give context to you, it's that. Yeah, I was calling to say, do you have anything else to say about that you think I should mention?
That one thing we always talk about, which is like, if you don't think you're going to like something, then like, don't hate on it.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Like, you're not somebody who reads a lot of...
Like, people want to read it because it's Sarah J. Maas.
There is a vast difference with new adults and, I guess, adults, at least with her books specifically.
Yeah. Like, I like that I can tell the difference.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I personally see a lot of growth. I like that it's very plot-driven, more so than character-driven.
Okay, I'm back. I called Jenna, and then we started chatting for probably like 40 minutes. And then we watched somebody's video, because I was like, what are the points that people are not liking about this series, this book? And so we watched somebody's video, and it was honestly hilarious. It was like, you do not have to like this book. Clearly, this book is not for everybody. And again, like I was saying about hate reading a book, I don't think that's good. Don't do that, because clearly this book is not for you. If you're gonna say, I just had to skim read all the smutty scenes, then this book is just not for you. What I'm saying is that I like the mundane aspects of this book. I like how the story was told. Like, there's a big build up to something in the second book, and one would say that it ended quite abruptly, but I think that that's just life. There's not going to be like a big, wow, crazy, oh my god, like for and that's why I liked it, because it felt a lot more realistic. Even though it's a fantasy world, obviously things aren't going to be very realistic, but I liked that aspect of it. Honestly, I could pick through every single thing that the person said and be like, I think I'm only getting so passionate about this book because it's very popular, and the reasons that I've heard so far as to why people like don't like this, I don't really understand. A lot of it's just the personal taste and expectations not being met, but that's expectations on you, bestie. Like with Crave, just because it was labeled as Twilight and meets Harry Potter thing does not mean that I didn't like it because it did not do that. I'm just offended that they tried to compare it to that. Which leads me into the next thing. Like, how people get so offended. This was a terrible Beauty and the Beast retelling, ACOTAR. Like, it wasn't really. We should literally stop advertising A Court of Thorns and Roses as that, because it's not even that important. Because it's not even important as a retelling, because it isn't really a retelling. It's got the elements of the story. Okay, I'm trying not to get too passionate about this, because again, like at heart, deep within my past, I was such a Sarah J. Maas hater that I'm just like, why am I defending this so much? I'm very conflicted, okay? So, A Touch of Darkness. This is a Hades and Persephone story. And the other day, so the two like big Hades and Persephone stories is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, and then Neon Gods by Kate. I don't remember the last name, but I'm literally reading that book right now. And I saw somebody comparing those two books, and I was like, no, bestie, there's no comparison. It's just because they have the same thing, but they are literally different genres. A Touch of Darkness is new adult smut, maybe adult. Neon Gods, which I didn't know this, is BDSM, erotica. Those are two different things. Don't compare it. Anyways, A Touch of Darkness. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed this book. It was not a great book, okay? By any means. But I really enjoyed the world. I really liked this idea of like the Greek gods, the Olympians, in like a modern setting. It's not like the real world and like modern day. Well, it's not the real world, but it is modern day, I would say. They have cell phones and computers and things like that, and like they talk like us. But it's like a city called New Athens, and obviously we have Persephone, who's daughter of Demeter. The story itself, let's see what I wrote. Did I say I give this 3 stars? I think I did. But it could have been better written. It could have been very much better written. The whole like reason why she has to be an underworld felt like pretty flimsy to me. It was okay. I think I'd say that the storyline, the romance, all that stuff was okay, but I didn't hate it, and I did have a fun time reading it. And I think it's a portion of that goes towards like me just really wanting to be in the world. So I heard on TikTok that the next book isn't worth reading. So anybody who's read the next book, let me know. But if I'm already skeptical about like how much I liked this first book, is it even like worth reading the second book? Because I'm not going to read a book no matter how much I want to be in the world. I'm not going to read it just to hate it, and I don't want to hate read things. Because moving on to The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a book that I read summer 2018, and when I had read it, it really infuriated me. I didn't really like the first half of the book, didn't really like it. The second half of Cruel Prince was so good, so much better than the first half. Yeah, I reread it. I don't really know why. I already said last year, I was like, time to stop reading the young adult. I think it's just not for me anymore. I don't want to like keep reading young adults and be like, this sucks. Well, clearly it's not for me anymore. Like, clearly I don't like this. But I just wanted, like, I heard that the second book is the best. So I was like, I just kind of want something like easy. And the audiobook was pretty short, so I listened to it really fast. I gave the reread 4 stars. Again, I don't really rate my rereads all the time, but this one I did. So, because I kind of forgot what happened in the very end of the book. I finished a book after that book, but I'm going to talk about the other 2 in the series trilogy. So Wicked King comes after. It was a 4 out of 5 stars for me again. This was so fast paced, which young adult, it's fast paced. I was like, oh, this is going so fast. Like, I just like to sit and live in the world sometimes. My friend who was also reading at the same time, Jenna, I have one friend, she was like, this is young adult. Like, shut up. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's a very fast paced book. So if you're looking for something like very quick and easy and fast paced, this is the series for you. I enjoyed it nonetheless, even though it was very fast. I wrote, yeah, fun, I guess. I think I just really don't like Jude. I don't know why I don't like her. Something about her gives me the ick, I guess. I don't know. And I didn't think that this second book was the best, but I did really like the last book. But I would say maybe that's just because I'm in the world, like I'm in it. I'm in it to win it at this point, so I really enjoyed the last book. It was very nice to be in the world, and at the end of the day, I will miss being in the world. I like the world that was created, but the very end that it has some real world aspects, I like that. Again, I'm like in my real world era. Who would have thought? I said again. Wish it would have slowed down a bit in the previous books just so I could enjoy my time there. That's just a personal preference, and I will acknowledge that that's a personal preference. Like, I still like to look at books somewhat objectively when rating them, because I'm like, I didn't like this, maybe you'll like it. But, you know, Crave, no, okay? But in between the series, I read A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. On that, like, day when a bunch of books came out. What day was that? Like, Publishing Tuesday. I was at the library and I saw it, and I was like, that one looks interesting. So I got the audiobook. It's a Scottish folk tale, Scottish vibes. And things that are just, like, set in that setting just have this, like, weight. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just got this certain, like, mood to it that's not very, like, oh my god, I can't wait to pick up this book again, you know? And it's a little too, like, wading through mud to be like, I just like being here in the world. It's not, like, I was not feeling that of how I usually like to just be in the world, but I got through it. There were definitely points. If I was reading it physically, I think about this a lot with audiobooks, if I was reading it physically, there was no way I could have made it through it. But it was enjoyable overall. It was very magical in the beginning, and then it, like, lost it. Just became too, like, and it felt like polar opposite. I was like, wait, I was reading a different book at the beginning, and now it's just, don't want to spoil anything. But that threw me off and probably lessened my overall feelings toward this book. There were just off elements to it that I was just like, I don't know how it could have changed, but in the end, I think that would probably just contribute to it being more of a forgettable book. So I probably won't read the second book by the time it comes out. I think it comes out this year, though. I don't know, but I probably won't remember most of the things that happened in this book by that time. So it was nice to read it, but it, yeah, probably will be forgettable. I give it a 3.5 stars. And then the last book that I read in February, and I thought that I wasn't going to read any more in February because I was powering through it in February. I read, like, book after book after book, like, every day. So I was like, I'm going to slow down. Maybe this audiobook I'll listen to a little bit more slowly. No, powered through it. Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. And this is an adult book, okay? But first and foremost, look up some trigger warnings for this, because it definitely deals with a lot of very intense things that you'll definitely should know, I'd say, before you read it, in case it can, you know, yeah. So I didn't know that beforehand, which I don't generally need trigger warnings, but the way it was written, it could be very jarring, so look it up. I don't want to say here. So this book, I kept seeing it, I think either, like, on Amazon, I kept seeing it, or on Audible, it kept being, like, recommended. But based on the reviews that I had seen, I, like, didn't think that this was going to be, like, oh my god, amazing. But I really enjoyed it. Like, again, I could probably recommend the audiobook just to, like, keep going through, because, again, this is probably not everybody's, like, cup of tea for pacing. It does skip through, like, past and present, which normally I hate time stuff, like skipping. I hate that. It's not fun for me, but this was fun. It does take place in the real world, so you're gonna have those real world cringy crap, and it It definitely does exist. But again, I know what I'm reading. With a lot of these books, I know what I'm here for. And I'm not expecting something that it's not. And if it turns out to be something I don't expect it to be in a bad way, then I'm not going to completely like fault the book. I know that that's my fault sometimes. So, not with Crave. This lipstick is staining my teeth. I take it back. Don't buy this. I didn't even say to buy it. But this, I really enjoyed it. I think the end could have been a bit better. But, whatever. It's very love story-y. And I like that. I would say, yeah, there's a big age gap, so, but I mean, a lot of fantasy is that these days, so it didn't really faze me, but I did see a con interview about this, so there's that. But she is obviously of age of consent, so. Dealt with some very heavy shit, 5 sure, okay, which is just reality. The reality of the darker side of life. I will say, I'm knocking half a star from this book, because I gave it a, well, I don't know. I don't know if I give it a 4 stars or 4.5, but there's a black character in this book that is just written so weirdly. Somebody, please let me know how you felt about this, how about that character, how she was written in this book. But I was just like, no. But she wasn't a main character, but definitely somebody let me know. So maybe 4 stars, this book. Also, this book talks about like Calypso. She's a siren. And the like description really makes it feel like we're gonna be sirening up the place, but it's not really about her being a siren, like at all. I mean, that's just what she is and affects aspects of her life, but it's not about that. So, okay, that's all the books that I read in January and February. So the winter season. This video is probably very long. Thank you if you've gotten this far. I appreciate you very much. I don't even know if I'm going to do the spring wrap up, but I've already read 2 books in March, so promising start. And one of them is a physical book, and I read it very fast, and that was very achieving. I read King of Battle and Blood, which I gave 4 stars, but I feel like maybe it's 3 stars. I don't know. And then I read City of Thorns as well. The description of the book lies to you. I gave that a 1.5 star. Not good. But anyways, yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I'm very tired. I'm going to sleep now. And I have a headache. Bye.